Hi there! Hello and good day! Welcome to my math class. This is Teacher Burns and we'll be having Statistics and Probability. We're using Module 3, which is about random sampling and sampling distribution. Our lesson is about illustrating random sampling. After this video, you should be able to illustrate random sampling, distinguish the types of random sampling, and identify the random sampling used in a given situation. Have you tried gathering data in your previous classes? In science, you do experiment. We collect data and study. In math, problem solving, we gather data to solve the unknown. If you have been a class secretary, you gather data of students' absenteeism and tardiness. Now, what is shown in the picture? We have population and we have sample. What do we know about population and sample? Population is composed of all elements from a given set of data that are grouped together by a common feature, while sample, it contains the same observable characteristics of the population. Sample is also known as a subset of a population. Let us have activity 1. Study the following and identify the sample and population in each situation. Number 1. A housewife buys a sack of rice. She examined only a handful of rice from the sack to find out whether it is of good quality or not. We have here sack of rice and a handful of rice. Which is population and which one is sample? That's correct. Our population is sack of rice and our sample is a handful of rice. Let us have another. Your mother wants to know the taste of food she is cooking or preparing. She tasted only a spoonful of it. We have food and we have spoonful. Which is population and which is sample? That is correct. Our population is food and our sample is spoonful. Number 3. The teacher wants to know the common height of senior high school students in Lala National High School. She got only 10 senior high school students from each year level. So we have senior high school students and 10 senior high school students. Which is population and which is sample? That is correct. Our population is senior high school students and our sample is 10 senior high school students. Now, we know what population and sample is. Have you wondered how to gather the sample? Here, we have a sampling technique. Sampling technique is the process of selecting entities in a sample. And there are two kinds. One is the probability sampling and the other is the non-probability sampling. A probability sampling uses random sampling, while a non-probability sampling uses non-random sampling based on convenience or based on other criteria. But our focus in this lesson is on random sampling. So let us have the types of random sampling. One is simple and lottery sampling. So suppose we have a population. By lottery, we chose our sample. So we have the first sample and then the second sample followed by the next sample and the last sample. Suppose we need 4 samples from this population. So this method is simple and lottery random sampling. It is a sampling technique by which every member of the population has an equal chance to be chosen as sample or drawn by lot. Next is a systematic random sampling. So suppose we have here a population. From a random start of 2, we get the next sample 5 followed by 8 and then followed by 11. So all of our samples in here, if you notice, we get our sample by every third from the random start of 2. This is an example of systematic random sampling, a sampling technique by which every member of the population is selected with a random start. Next is stratified random sampling. Here, from a given population, we grouped our population into smaller population group known as strata. So if we choose one from the blue team and then followed by the green team and a representative from the pink team, and lastly, representative from the red team. If you notice, each member of the strata has a representative for the sample. This is called stratified random sampling, a sampling technique that is used when the population can be classified into groups or strata based on some characteristics such as age, gender, or socioeconomic status, and many others. Next is the cluster random sampling. Cluster random sampling is a method wherein the population is in clusters, known as cluster population. For example, we have here 6 clusters and we need to choose 2. So, for example, we get the cluster having 5 and 6 and another sample from the cluster 11 and 12. So, we have 2 clusters as our sample. It could also be in this method. Suppose we have grouped our population into 3. Say, this is from Luzon, the next group is from Visayas, and the third group is from Mindanao. So we took a sample from Luzon, and we took 2 samples from Visayas. One is paired with the one from Luzon, the other one is paired with the one from Mindanao. So we have created here samples taken from 3 different clusters. So cluster sampling is a sampling technique by which the sample is taken from different levels, generally from higher levels to lower levels. This is often applied when the elements of the sample are from different geographical area. Next is the multi-stage random sampling. So suppose we have here a population and we use a stratified random sampling in order to group the heterogeneously grouped population. So in order to classify, we group them using the stratified random sampling. From the stratified random sampling, we choose the sample by drawing lots or the simple random sampling. This is a multi-stage random sampling technique, a sampling technique that is done using a combination of different sampling techniques. So now that we know the different kinds of random sampling, let us try this. Identify the type of random sampling illustrated by the following situations. Number 1. Mr. Cruz, the municipal mayor, wants to know whether his constituents are in favor or not of the federal form of government to be implemented in the Philippines. He wants to select a sample of 400 from the different groups of his constituents, from the youths, from the adults, and from the senior citizens. What do you think is the type of random sampling applied in here? You are correct. We have stratified random sampling. Number 2. To select his representatives for the youth conference at Baguio City, the teacher listed all the names of his students in a small piece of paper, which are rolled and then mixed together and picked out 10 rolled papers at random. What random sampling is illustrated in this situation? Simple and lottery sampling. That's correct. Next, the third. A researcher wished to draw a sample of 200 persons from a population of 600. He selects every 5th person in the list and numbers 1 to 10 will be randomly selected to act as a starting point. What type of random sampling is illustrated in this situation? A systematic random sampling. Very good. Next, in a survey, the samples were randomly taken from subsequent cities, then municipalities or barangays, and then households. What random sampling is used in this situation? That is correct. Cluster random sampling. Lastly, to choose the sample respondents for a national survey, a researcher used the lottery method in identifying the regions or cities to be chosen. Then, he used the stratified random sampling to determine the samples from the certain areas or clusters. What type of random sampling is this? That is correct. We have multi-stage random sampling. So the types of random sampling techniques are 1. Simple random or lottery sampling, a sampling technique by which every member of the population has an equal chance to be chosen as sample, drawn by lots. Next, systematic random sampling, a sampling technique by which every member of the population is selected with a random start. Third, stratified random sampling, a sampling technique that is used when the population can be classified into groups or strata based on some characteristics such as age, gender, or socioeconomic status. Then, we have number 4, cluster random sampling, a sampling technique by which the sample is taken from different levels, generally from higher levels to lower levels. This is usually used when the elements of a population are spread over a wide geographical area. Lastly, the multi-stage sampling is a sampling technique that is done using the combination of different sampling techniques. After knowing random sampling, what does each of these types tell us? Random sampling simply tells us to practice fairness, since it gives every individual a chance to be chosen. Avoid bias. So, take note, life is fair, so we have to be fair. Live your best life. I hope you're enlightened. That's all for now. See you next topic. Thanks for your time. God bless.